Welcome to the first Lunch and Learn of the year for the Systems Engineering and Integration Community of Practice. John Earhart is going to be talking about the Certified Systems Engineering Professional certification available through the International Council of Systems Engineering, as well as how that can apply to your systems engineering career, not just the checking the box. I want to briefly talk about the COP and the goals for this year. I'm new in the lead role here. Do want to, I'm not going to go into detail on these things, but the three main goals I've got for this group is that we increase the competency, collaboration, and community across the company as we think about systems engineering and integration. This is really one of the company's core competencies, and we want to increase the ability and the competency, both the that people use in their jobs every day and how that's measured. We want to encourage collaboration across business units, across divisions, and across contracts. And then the way to a lot of the benefits there will also come from building community between the different people who are working in this role and even not working in the role, who benefit from the tools and the skills that we apply as systems engineers. So look for more information to come about how we are going to encourage and measure each of these things. The Get Connected page will be the primary place to that we post things, and we'll have these lunch and learn, and we'll look for other opportunities to encourage all three of these important C goals. Next slide. So before John gets into his talk, I do want to make three requests for help. These should all be fairly easy, but it's important that you do them. I want everybody who is here today to complete a brief survey. We will post that link into the chat for the meeting. So at the completion of the talk, go to that Smartsheet form. This is something that we're doing across all of the different communities of practice. Ox and his team have put together a useful survey so we can gather information and try and make these sessions more useful for everybody and get some feedback. We're also recording the session, so we'll post that recording on the Get Connect page if people have questions later or want to share this with people who are not able to attend real time. I would also like to ask that you email me if you hold INCOSE membership or any of the levels of INCOSE certification. We're just trying to get a handle on what memberships we have as a company and what the numbers of certified people are. I know quite a few people already have either submitted for reimbursement through the company or let me know, and we are trying to complete that list that we have. And then throughout the year, we do want to hear if you've got topics that you want to learn more about or that you feel you can present about for lunch and learn sessions. This is really for, this is not a top-down session. This should be driven by people's interests and skills. If you've got a topic that you are ready to present, especially if it's something that is directly applicable to your work, and if you can present something that you've already put together for some other purpose that would be interesting to people across the company, that would be great. So please get in touch with me, and we'll talk about getting you on a schedule, and look forward to hearing from people, hopefully across the whole, all the divisions across the company. Next slide. So with that, I'll hand it over to John. He's got a good summary here, and I'm looking forward to seeing how people can apply these lessons and get themselves certified like John and others have already done. With that, over to you, John.
Okay, thanks, Mark, and thanks for inviting me to a talk. I haven't been involved in the COP for maybe about the last year or so since I stopped leading up the modeling and simulation community practice. So glad to be back. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself, so you can kind of see, an example of somebody who somebody's career that came up and then eventually got certified. Talk about, and then take one step back and talk a little bit about systems engineering and why it's important, what it is, and then talk about certification, why that's important, what it is, and then there'll be a little of a help asked at the end, to get you guys to, if you do decide to go through this process while you're studying, to create some additional practice test questions for it. Okay, so I started off doing single molecular optoelectronics and electromagnetic induced transparency last year or so of college. Progressed to SME level in photonics, and mainly electro-optical sensor and weapons component and design. Managed a fairly high level signals intelligence program overseas for a number of years. And now I do laser weapon design for the Missile Defense Agency and support OSD-R&E contracts, directed energy specifically. So I've got the background in engineering, physics, systems engineering, management, leadership courses. What really kind of piqued my interest was a systems engineering course given by Dr. Vega at Colorado State. And I went ahead and decided to get a master's degree at Georgetown to broaden my exposure to other technical fields, specifically at Georgetown, cyber, Internet of Things, cloud. So buzzword type stuff a few years back that's become more and more important. Now I'm enrolled in executive MBA program to get formalized training on a lot of the business and operational concepts that I've been exposed to over the years. And in 2021, after completing the systems engineering management degree and being a practicing system engineer for a number of years, I decided to get certification that was awarded in 2021. So take a step back. Systems engineering, what it is leads next into why it's important, and then that leads next into why certification is important for you and for NTSI and for our government customers. So the way I think of systems engineering overall is there's kind of two aspects to it. On the left side, there's really the technical communication aspect of system engineering. The language of system engineering, the terms that folks use in the industry, context, how things have been formalized. Big part of that is the processes, and you'll see in the next few slides how the processes are important for the certification itself, and that's a lot of that is captured in the INCOSE handbook, the processes and best practices. So a lot of system engineering can be thought of as a communication field. It's a little less directly trackable to basic physical principles that you might think of your classical engineering, like mechanical or electrical, deal with. The other aspect of it that is less about communication and more about the math and the science part of systems engineering is what I call the abstract system and lifecycle design. And so this is the idea that any systems lifecycle development process can be abstracted. So you can develop mathematical models, interfaces, formalisms, processes, and best practices around an abstract design of something without necessarily having to know the details of those physics-based principles that underpin the mechanical engineering, electrical engineering fields. And it can get fairly math intensive and very theoretical. And so those are the kind of the two aspects of systems engineering. Also, you'll find that companies sometimes use the title system engineer to describe a role that requires a broad range of engineering and troubleshooting skills, usually interfacing with multiple stakeholders, often associated with evolution or deployment of existing products or systems. And as a matter of fact, before I even knew what systems engineering was, before I knew that it was a field in of itself, before I knew about INCOSE. I was a systems engineer for a number of years at Boeing back in the early 2000s, and this described very well what I did. And you'll see that periodically. Okay, so systems engineering becomes important and necessary when the conceptualization of something, what we call the system, is only possible or most efficiently approached through compartmentalizing parts of that thing and its environment. And as soon as something's complex enough that requires that compartmentalization in order to efficiently conceptualize it, you have to manage that complexity. And so the goal of systems engineering is to efficiently manage that. Okay, so that's in a nutshell why it's important to be able to understand the concepts of systems engineering and to practice systems engineering, the development of systems that require that compartmentalization. Additionally, and maybe more importantly, is it's specifically called out in DoD Instruction 5000.88, where if you look down here, the highlighted section, read this: the DoD will conduct a comprehensive engineering program for defense systems, including the engineering management activities necessary to guide the development of defense systems. The engineering management activities include, but are not limited to, mission engineering, and then systems engineering is next. And then further on in this document, they flesh out more about requirements for systems engineering. So it's a big deal to our Department of Defense customers, in addition to being necessary for complex systems in general. Okay, so now what is certification in systems engineering? Okay, so first of all, describe the organization that grants you certification. So INCOSE is the largest organization focused on maintaining and further and developing the body of knowledge and tools created to manage system complexity. So the systems engineering knowledge and tools. Its handbook formalizes the language and processes of system engineering, and they offer 3 levels of certification. They certify a person's demonstrated system engineering ability. So there's ACEP, CCEP, and ECEP. ACEP's the beginning level, CCEP's the mid-level, and ECEP is the end-level certification. Certification is granted through an assessment of a person's understanding of the language and processes in the handbook. Okay, so, and documented success while performing these processes. Okay, so ACEP itself, the beginning level, requires you to pass the test, and that's it. CCEP requires you to pass the test and prove that you've done some systems engineering work through your own application and through your references. And I think you have to have 5 years of experience. And then ECEP requires 25 years of experience in addition to your references, unless you're already a CCEP, and then you can get your ECEP with 20 years of experience. So why is it important to get certified? Systems engineering and INCOSE handbook language and processes are prevalent across the defense industry, especially large contractors or programs. So it helps to understand the language and the formalisms associated with concepts that you might already know, but call them something else. It's important to get on the same page. So certification is not usually required by companies, although I have seen and continue to see more various certifications listed under the desired section of a job posting. Contractors, including us and government program management offices, do look favorably on certification as part of that DoD 5000.88, and there's no reason to expect that this isn't going to become more and more important. Okay, so I briefly mentioned part of the process. So there is a fee associated with each of these levels. It's $180 for ASEP, which you can see stands for associate. It's $350 for CSEP, which is certified systems engineering professional, and it's $630 for ESEP. And for ESEP, you show 10 years of systems engineering experience backed up by references, and you have to have 25 years total experience, or like I said before, 20 years if you're already CSEP. And so you can see there that if you have 25 years of STEM experience, 10 years of systems engineering experience backed up by your references, you don't have to take the test, right? But if you did take the test and you got your CSEP before, then you can apply for ESEP with 20 years. And so I plan to do that this year, actually, in 2022. All right, so this is my take on the most efficient way to study and pass for the test. So the first thing you got to know is the test material comes from the latest edition of the handbook, all of it. There's no test material that comes from other sources besides the handbook. The most important parts of the handbook that you need to understand to pass the test are the diagrams that outline the individual processes. So there's a block diagram in each chapter that shows input, outputs, and controls for each of the processes in the INCOSE handbook. I recommend this study method. I think most folks will be successful with this if you already have a decent working knowledge of systems engineering. First, get the handbook, skim over it to get a feel for the language format and any holes in your knowledge, things that are traditionally and INCOSE defined systems engineering tasks that maybe you haven't done before. Take our practice exam. So we developed a 120 question practice exam with answers on Get Connected. These are the two links, the exam and the answers. Do that, close book, and time yourself. So do it in under 2 hours. And then if you can do that, if you score above an 85%, I believe you're ready for the real test. INCOSE doesn't publish the pass rates, and it's just a pass or fail. But from what I've seen and from talking to folks, any given year hovers around 70%. So if you don't pass the test, and I mean, I'll admit right now, when I did this the first time, I think I scored like 80%, 70, 75, 80%, something like that. So it didn't really feel comfortable just going in and taking the test without studying. So I retook the test, open book, and that forced me to research every question. And it goes pretty quick. It's not going to take that long. And then after I did that, I went back, closed book, retook the test, and scored 95, 96%, something like that. So if you can do that and score 85, I think you're going to be good. And then sign up to take the real test. Okay, so I think this might be interesting for some folks who are still struggling with what systems engineering is, why it's useful, what does it do. So me specifically, I've got a couple of speaking dates set up for 2022 with the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and the Direct Energy Professional Society. This is a joint effort and a volunteer collaboration with various stakeholders in industry, in government, it's a direct and energy system engineering and integration outreach effort. And so if you guys are interested in that and you plan to attend either of these conferences, you can swing by and see that briefing. This year, I'm speaking on the component technology aspect of direct energy weapons, but the other subcommittee panels are looking at aero optics. They're looking at high level system engineering models for attempting to show how the system design of a direct energy weapon might change as a function of mission requirements and higher level customer requirements. And so you can see system engineering working in these engagements in 2022. Okay, so here's the end of the briefing, my part of it, and my ask for you. If you are going to use the practice test and answers that are on Get Connected, and while you study, if you can, if you don't mind, creating a handful, maybe 3 or 4 additional test questions. Use the same format that you see in those questions, and then you can tack those onto the bottom of the spreadsheet, and that'll help us continue to increase our practice exam question pool, which is really the best way to study and practice to pass the test. Okay, so with that, I'll open it up to questions for my specific part of it, and then we'll shoot it back over to Mark for general questions about the COP.
Sure. Let me jump in first.
Okay.
I do see, so on this screenshot here, we've got the Get Connected page for the COP, and I want to point out in the Files section, this is where you can find those practice exams that John talked about, both the exams and the answers. And another thing I want to emphasize before we get into the questions too much is that the exam is taken directly from the SE handbook. What you think you know about systems engineering and how terms are defined does not matter for the exam. The handbook is right. Whether or not that's the way you use those terms in your career, that does not matter. It's the SE handbook. So like John said, you really need to spend time with the handbook, look at those block diagrams, understand the definitions in the glossary, and the practice test is a good way to get at the thinking that is behind the questions and how they're applying the definitions and the process flow that's documented in the handbook and then squeezed into multiple choice questions. The questions are not always hard, but they can be tricky because it's multiple choice. So it's not free-form answers. They have to make it hard so that not everybody just passes with just picking the obvious answer. So do definitely spend some time with those practice exams and with the handbook. If you're an INCOSE member, you can get a copy directly from the website. So then we'll turn it over to the questions. I see a number of questions in the chat about a class at Colorado State and taking a class to help get the certification. John, do you know anything about that process?
So the class at Colorado State was not for certification. It was just an intro to systems engineering class that's popular, I guess, is a good term to use. Dr. Vega is a popular figure, and that's a large class, and Colorado State is a preeminent systems engineering school. But there are various workshops and videos and things online that you can and resources that you can take advantage of to study for the test. That being said, I think it's difficult online to find practice questions. What we have, this 120 question practice exam, is probably going to be the best resource that you're going to find, especially for free. I think you can pay for some practice exam questions online, but yeah, I recommend that. Pretty confident that if you follow the process I've laid out, then that's probably the least path of least resistance to success. But like I said, there are videos and articles online and probably courses associated with trying to pass the CSEP that you can find. I see a question from Joe Jordan. Will you submit a paper presentation in INCOSE Denver this fall? I don't speak at INCOSE conferences. Haven't yet. I may in the future. So I don't plan on attending that or speaking at that. The 2 conferences I listed are specifically associated with the technologies that I'm interested in: direct energy weapon technologies. That's AIA and the Direct Energy Professional Society. Steve asked, does MTSI subsidize the exam fee? So in general, training budgets for folks are sort of at the BU discretionary level. I mean, most folks have a pretty substantial training budget. So I would just encourage you to reach out to your supervisor and let them know that you plan to do this. And I suspect you're not going to get too much pushback. This is something that MTSI values. So Jeff asks, how do we get the handbook? You can order it on Amazon. You can go to INCOSE's website and get a copy. I have a copy at my desk in headquarters. I think Russ probably has a copy that I'm sure he lets you borrow. Sorry, I got to go back up to questions. It looks like I skipped the middle of the chat. I'm a recent hire at MTSI. Do we have a specific competency model, or is it composed of? Is this? Okay, looks like April addressed that. Elizabeth asked, does MTSI adopt the INCOSE SE handbook as a corporate standard? Does MTSI have a modified version of the handbook for employees? Corporate standard. That's a good question. Mark, do you know? Can you answer that?
So we do not have a specific, we're not using the SE handbook as a corporate standard, although it is often used with across the company. It's certainly something we should talk about if we want to adopt it either as is or tailored to our organization's the way that we do business. So that's something that I plan to look at in the year ahead.
Jeff asks, can you contrast INCOSE with CMMI? So CMMI, the capability maturity model, and the organization associated with that. So the way I understand it is, there are overlaps and synergies between the two. INCOSE is more focused on systems engineering as opposed to just the software side of it. Software is a big part of system engineering, and software processes in particular are referenced in various INCOSE publications. But they're the easiest probably way to think of it is INCOSE deals overall with system engineering, while CMMI is more focused on software. Okay, and then Mark talked about, well, so yeah, the processes of certifying the organization's maturity models, and as far as how they develop their products. Yeah, so well, that's a good point. I don't think INCOSE even certifies organizations at all.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of you guys answered with these questions. Good.
So another question I have is about study groups. I've gotten questions from a number of different people who are looking to clump up with other people to help study for the tests. I know there are people out there. What I would encourage everyone to do, I will make a new post on the Get Connected page asking for people who are interested to add their names to the list, and we will try and get some study groups together. It can be helpful to have other people to study with, to share resources, in addition to what you already see on the Get Connected page there, and just for the help and the accountability as you study. So that's one area that I think that we can definitely do better as a group than as individuals.
Okay, I think we're getting close to the end of the questions here in the chat.
I had one about agile engineering, systems engineering, if you had any perspective on that.
I mean, I don't have direct experience doing agile, so I'm not a software guy in general, and I personally haven't been on an agile team and gone through any sprints or anything like that. But But that being said, it is a part of the systems engineering, INCOSE's systems engineering world, and you'll see mention of it in the systems engineering handbook as a way to develop systems, specifically software. And then, I'm sure there's various on the agile side of the house, there's various certifications that you can do. But as far as INCOSE is concerned, it's one of many ways to do to do development. Okay, I see you guys talking about. Okay. Then Jeff asks, require a user to be integrated in the process. Who stands in for them?
Yeah, I find the word agile to be abused and overly, right? So everyone claims that they're agile, but if you read into the definition of what an agile development system is, it requires, a user, right? So you just got to be intimately involved in the process, because that's really the only way to guide the development cycles as you go forward. If it's just the developers doing it, they're probably going to get lost because they don't have the user's perspective. So that's probably a topic for another discussion, but I just wanted to toss it out there. It's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah. So yeah, it does get overused because the idea of including user inputs throughout the system development lifecycle is a mainstay of systems engineering in general. But specifically calling it out and including it in the process for software development and having it formalized is probably something that Agile does better than just having it as a necessary feedback loop with every part of your system design cycle that the overall systems engineering talks about. So that might be one of the main differences. But yeah,
the INCOSE SE handbook does briefly refer to agile principles and their application to systems engineering, but it is far from a complete treatment. And there's a lot more work being done within INCOSE and other places about how to do a more complete agile systems engineering framework.
Agreed, and I expect, I understand this is a topic for another conversation, but I did want to make just one more point. I've been involved in customer meetings when they said, hey, they'll save a year in production time because they're going to be agile. And it baffles me that, intelligent people would actually say something like that. So I think what most people really mean by agile is that they're doing spirals, right?
Yeah.
That's really what it is. But I did have a question actually related to exactly what we're talking about. And as far as, so there are 3 certification levels. So first one sounds like you pass a test, right? Big deal. We've all passed hundreds of tests in our life. The second one sounds like you actually need to submit some of your work. So my question is, if you're working, how do you do that if you're working like on government projects where the government would say, hey, you can't send that in. That's it's none of their business. Or if you're working classified work, you obviously can't do that at all. So how do you deal with that kind of stuff?
The application process is general enough. You just have to specify that you worked under some of the systems engineering processes for a certain period of time, and you can talk in as high level of detail as you want about the product or the project. So for classified collateral programs like that, you don't have to give any details at all. And then the references part of it. So that's your individual application. So you say, I claim that I developed requirements for this period of time, and this is why I can make this claim because of this work that I did. That when you say because of this work that I did, you can be general with that, and they'll understand. And then
that makes me question the whole system then. So I can just say, yeah, I'm a great guy. Give me the qualification.
Well, so the next part of it is you have to submit references, and those references have to be able to back up your claims. So the system may still be cracked if you are corrupt and your references are corrupt, right? So
Thanks.
Yeah.
But you don't have to submit any artifacts of your work.
No.
And your references can be people that you worked with purely in a classified environment.
Yes.
When I applied last year, that was true for some of my references. I would say that gathering the references is one of the hardest parts of the application process because you have to find 3 people who are willing to spend the time to fill out the form and write an assessment of the systems engineering that they saw you do. And so it's not just checking a box. They do have to do a little bit of work.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys are aware, most of the time, the way to create the path of least resistance for your references is to write up your own, your own description. They can read it, and if they agree with it, they don't have to change it, and that takes a little bit of the work away from your references, so they don't have to create something from scratch. Yeah, or take them to lunch first, exactly.
And your references do not all have to be certified, either CSEP or ESEP.
Yeah. But this is a good question, Mark. You said they should be some similar or greater experience in SC. That's true. And the references themselves have to submit a basic description of their career so that the certifiers can make judgment on whether or not they are able to judge your specific SC experience. Okay. I think we handled all the questions in the chat. Does anyone else have any questions for me specifically about the certification process? Okay, thanks, Jeff. All right, Mark, leave it to you to say some last words here.
All right, I'm going to drop 2 links into the chat here. The first is the link to the Get Connected page. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at that. Lots of good resources there. Somewhat sprawling. Going to work to organize that a little better, but there's a lot of material there about not just this certification stuff, but other resources you may find useful as you do SE work or proposals, or are interested in other topics like MBSE, or maybe there's something there about Agile. And then the other link I will drop is to the survey. Just take a few minutes to fill out, and I would encourage everybody to do that as soon as we're done here, so that it's fresh in your mind and you get it finished. That will be very helpful for both this COP and then working across other COPs too, trying to get useful and actionable lunch and learn sessions and learn where people are interested in learning more. Any more questions about the COP in general or this certification topic?
This is Steve Peduto. I just want to commend John on a great talk and emphasize what he said there, that the SC handbook really is the source of truth for the exam. So I went down this road about 10 or 11 years ago, and I read the thing cover to cover before taking the exam. There's a lot of aspects, towards the back of the book, and things like value engineering, and there are, I think, just mentions of niche areas. At least there were back then. There may have been updated since then with like MBSE stuff, but things that you may not touch on in your day-to-day practice. Definitely get savvy on them, because your random sampling of exam questions may involve 20 questions on something that you're not actively familiar with, even if you've been a practicing SC for 15 or 20 years. So study the handbook.
Thanks, Steve.
Here's a last question from Jeff Heyer. Have you been able to employ things you learned from INCOSE in the real world? I would say I'm having trouble coming up with any specific examples, but as you are looking to lay out the systems engineering plan for a project, the handbook and the processes it describes are a very useful starting point to make sure that you're not missing areas that you should be considering. Joe, if you've got some examples, I'd say please go ahead and share.
Com check.
Yeah, we got you.
From left side of the V or right side of the V, the book does provide some good foundational. Of course, Jeff, we have the inherent issue with old way of thinking, so to speak. So you definitely have to combat that. Perfect.
Yeah, and there's no intention in the SE handbook that it is the only way to do things, and there's a recognition that it should always be tailored to your project. That's the beauty of systems engineering, is that the answer is almost always it depends. But Joe's reference to the systems engineering V, that is important. That and a couple other similar models that you should be familiar with are talked about at length in the handbook. So that's a good example of something that whether or not you're pursuing certification is worth reading the handbook for.
So I've seen position descriptions, for companies hiring that might dictate, hey, you got to be this level of qualification. Have you seen? I mean, typically though, obviously, if you're doing government work, an INCOSE document has to become a compliance document on a proposal, on a contract. Have you seen that? Does the government put, hey, these are the SE process that you have to follow as defined by this handbook?
I have not seen that specifically. I don't know if others have. One thing I would say is that I have started to see INCOSE certification for individuals on job listings as a either as a requirement or as a stand-in for systems engineering expertise. It is a shortcut to demonstrate that you have that expertise. And it's much less widespread than say PMP. The number of total certified people is only a few thousand still. It's not the tens or hundreds of thousands that PMI has with the PMP and their other certifications. But INCOSE is doing their best to increase the prevalence and the recognition of the CSAP, especially, as well as the ASAP and the ESAP. Joe has a good point in the chat that many of the people in the government who, especially those who are making the proposals, are not particularly knowledgeable of systems engineering processes. That's why they bring us in. So definitely expect to have them lean on your expertise on most projects, but they are not typically prescribing any particular SE processes. That may be different for development contractors in many cases, and sometimes we're doing that, but you're not going to see as much dictation of the particular processes you might see in systems engineering as you might in some of the earned value management or other programmatic management processes. All right, any other questions before we wrap it up? All right, thanks for the good interaction. Thanks again to John for a useful presentation. We will post this on the Get Connected page along with a reminder to submit your name if you're interested in a study group or looking at further materials to help you prepare for the exam. That will have to be somewhat self-selected and self-organized, but the Get Connected page will be a good place to start. Thanks for your time, everybody, and we will look forward to seeing you again at the next TBD SE and I COP Lunch and Learn, hopefully in a month or two. And please keep those ideas coming if you've got other things you're curious about or willing to share about.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.